Okay, welcome. Thank you all for joining this webinar about Matter, the open source protocol that claims to enable seamless communication between IoT devices. And my name is Clemens Valens. I work for Elector, and I will be assisting our guest presenters, Rob Reynolds from SparkFun and Matt Maupin from Silicon Labs. Rob is a creative technologist at SparkFun, and part of his job is trying out new technologies. And recently he had a go at the Matter protocol and wrote an article about it. In this webinar, he will share his experiences. Hello, Rob. How are things in Denver, Colorado today?
They're lovely. Early morning, the sun's shining. It's not a million degrees yet, so that's good.
You are expecting 1,000,000 degrees. That's
Actually, no,
quite
not
hot.
so bad. We should only get up to about, let me do the math, 33 Celsius.
Oh, it's a cool day in Denver.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Also present with us today is Matt Maupin. I hope I pronounce it right, from Silicon Labs. Matt is a senior marketing manager at Silicon Labs, and he's an expert on Simplicity Studio, the software that Rob will be using in his presentation. Hello, Matt. How are you doing?
Hello. Good afternoon to you. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody online.
You're doing fine. Where you are in Austin, is that right? Austin,
Yeah,
Texas.
I am in Austin, Texas. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
So
our
it's very hot
headquarters for
also.
Silicon Labs.
Yes. Okay. Before we continue, we will do a quick survey of the audience knowledge on Matter. This will give us some insight into the audience we are dealing with. So there will be a question on screen. It is already there. And now you can click on the answer. And while this is running, we will go to the giveaway. Somehow I can show a slide, but I don't know how. Go, can you put it on? There it is. Okay. So the goal of this webinar is not to explain the Matter protocol in detail, but instead to help you get started with it. So for this, Rob will use the SparkFun Think Plus Matter board that you see on this slide, and Simplicity Studio from Silicon Labs. And now Simplicity Studio is free, so we don't have to give it away. But Silicon Labs has been kind enough to provide us with 5 sets of the SparkFun Think Plus Matter board together with a Google Nest Hub. So how cool is that? They are giving away 5 of these sets. You can join the raffle by filling in a form for which the URL will be pasted in the chat box. There is no code word or anything, and you just have to fill in the form to make a chance of winning this kit. Good luck. So let's have a look now at the survey results. There we go. So we have 37% and none at all. This is still growing. So it seems that Matter, we do not have a lot of experts. We don't even have a seasoned expert. Okay, nice. Then we will continue with the webinar. At the end of this webinar, you can ask questions, and you do this by typing them into the Q&A chat box, which is on the right corner of your screen normally. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available afterwards on the Elector TV channel for replay. And actually, it is streaming live on YouTube right now. So I will pull up the slide deck for Rob so he can do his presentation. There we go. Okay, we're all set. Rob, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, well, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Clemens. So, yeah, we're all familiar with the Internet of Things, IoT. It seems like everyone who advertises anything now tags IoT onto it. I know for me, one of the big issues up to this point has been that to get into IoT, and particularly home automation, you had to choose one ecosystem, be it Google Home or Amazon Alexa, Apple HomeKit, and the rule was choose one, and then that's the one you live with. Now, Matter is looking to change all that. The goal of Matter is to make communication possible between devices of different ecosystems. That way, you're not just stuck choosing the device that's within your ecosystem. If you see something, if you're a Google Home person, but you see something that Amazon Alexa has, you can use that as well. That's the goal here. And the other issue up to this point has been that without a huge investment, we as engineers and makers have only been able to be passive users within the Internet of Things. Now, SparkFun aims to fix that by creating a way to make you a creator, a designer, and engineer using Matter and your own IoT devices, or better, IoT devices that you create. So to do that, we created the Thing Plus Matter. This is a programmable board with a feather footprint. It's got a quick connector and pinouts to allow you to get creative and be not just a passenger on the Internet of Things, but a creator, an engineer. You can design your own stuff now. And with this board and with Simplicity Studios, you're not just relegated to join or to just use things like smart light bulbs or smart blinds or whatever else the major players decide to design and manufacture. You can now create your own devices and tie them into your own home automation system. And I think this is great. For me, it's really exciting that for the possibilities this offers for people who may, who may need help with things. If if you're wheelchair bound, if there's something like that, if you have trouble doing things manually or physically, you can create something or have someone create something for you specifically to your needs. And I think that's pretty amazing. Now, this is a powerful little board, and it uses a really powerful interface, Simplicity Studio from Scilabs, to program it. So today we're going to give you a quick look at getting a simple Blink program uploaded onto the Matter board. And then after that, we'll take a look at controlling the board through your home automation system. Now, in my case here, I'm using Google Nest Hub. If you are using a different ecosystem, there will be probably some slight changes, but overall the steps should be very similar. So let's get started. Actually, no, I want to talk a little bit more about Matter first, just in case anyone's just finding out about it, because it's still pretty new. So Matter started out as Project CHIP, which stands for Connected Home over IP, back in 2019. Now, major players, previously competing players, Amazon, Apple, Google, along with the Zigbee Alliance and a number of other companies like Nordic Semiconductor, all got together in an attempt to develop a single communication protocol that would be used to unify the entire Internet of Things. This was huge. This was as if 15 years ago, Apple and Android had gotten together and said, "Hey, let's just create apps that can be used on both devices." How great would that have been? But that was the goal of Project CHIP, which is now Matter. So Matter's open source, it's royalty free, and it allows devices to communicate over Wi-Fi, Ethernet, Bluetooth low energy, and thread networks. So that means that devices that are Matter certified will be able to communicate with each other seamlessly, regardless of the wireless technology they use. Additionally, and this is great for any of us who want to design and build for it, all of Matter's information is available in their GitHub repository. That's github.com/project-chip/connected home IP. And that includes everything. It includes the source, the docs, the scripts, examples, and everything that a developer could want to create Matter compatible components. Okay, now let's get started. So, yep, we're up. Good. So the first step is going to be to download and install Simplicity Studios, which you can get over at scilabs.com. Actually, I believe it's scilabs.com/developers/simplicity-studio. We might have a link up in the chat. That would be great. But you can find it just by going to Scilabs and hunting around there. So like I said, this isn't going to be a follow along as we go presentation, because honestly, some of these steps, and especially some of the compiling and flashing steps, can take a while. So I'm going to go through these steps kind of quickly here today, but if you want, we've got a more extensive guide over at sparkfun.com, and so that'll allow you to follow along at the pace that you need or that your system requires, depending on how long it takes to get everything compiled and flashed. So once you're at the Scilabs website, you click on the installer button for your particular operating system, you'll be taken to a login page. Now, if you don't already have an account, you'll want to create one now, because Simplicity Studio is going to ask you for it each time you open up that app. Once you've downloaded it and got it all downloaded, run the setup application. So once Simplicity Studio restarts, it usually has to restart once it gets all installed. You'll be brought back to the installation manager, but this time it's going to ask if you want to install your device by connecting the device, or if you want to install it by technology types. So here we'll want to select install by connecting devices, and then we'll connect our SparkFun Think Plus via USB. All right, so you'll be asked if you want to install the required packages, which we do. So you can go ahead and hit yes. And once that installs, the installation manager should read one device found, and it should come up with, as I believe you can see there on the slide, something named something like JLink 00449 something 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 ID 0004 number, whatever it happens to be. So check the box and hit next, and you'll be brought to the package installation options. So here, selecting auto installs all the necessary packages with all the bells and whistles that we're going to want. There's also an advanced option that lets you choose exactly which packages you do and do not want to install. But if you're working at this level, you're probably not going to need to go there. Go ahead and select auto and then next. You'll be given master software license agreement to accept. That'll happen a few times throughout this process, and then the installation will begin. So this one's going to take some time and requires a restart at the end again. So now might be a good time to go get a beverage, get a snack, relax. Don't worry if it's taking a while, because this one does take a while to get everything set up. So you'll be greeted by another end user license agreement. And then finally, you're going to arrive at the welcome screen. Let's see. Yep, restart. Make sure I'm in the right place. Yes, you'll be greeted by the welcome screen. And now the device should say SparkFun Think Plus MGM 240p. So hitting start will bring up the Think Plus information page, where you can see an overview of the board, plus example projects and demos, documentation, and compatible tools. Now, if you navigate to example projects and demos tab, and then filter out the type in the field by just typing the word blink, you should bring up a number of resources, and you'll want to find platform blink bare metal resource, and then click the create button, which you can see right over there. Great. Now this is going to open a window that will allow you to change the name or the location of the file. I suggest renaming it to something that makes sense to you, like First Blink Demo or Think Plus Blink, or apparently, if you're a sloppy typer like I am, you name it Think Plus Blink, but whatever, it's something that you'll remember, and then click Finish. Now, once the project is built, you'll see on the left side of the Simplicity Studio app a Project Explorer window, kind of up there in the upper left. Now look for the main project folder, which should be named Matter Blink Example. Right-click on that, and then navigate down to Run as One Silicon Labs ARM project, or ARM program. And once you click on that, it's going to start compiling the sketch and flash it to your Think Plus Matter board. Great. So once that happens, you should see the board's blue LED start blinking at half-second intervals. Now, chances are when you first plugged in your Think Plus board via USB, it already started blinking at half-second intervals before you even did anything. That's probably the pre-installed firmware there. So the way to verify if your code is actually being flashed to the board, you can change the blink interval by going to the blink C file, which is, you should see if you drop down your Think Plus Blink folder, take a look over there. And like I said, open up the Blink C file. If you go look in the main window, somewhere down around line 31, I believe, you should find define toggle delay milliseconds, and that should be set at 500. So simply changing that value to something that will make it clear that the LED is blinking at a different tempo is going to let you know that everything is working properly. Change it to 300 for an extremely rapid blink, or 3000 for a really slow blink, just something different from the half-second blink that it's doing right now. And that's certainly going to let you know that the board, reflash that doing the same way, right click, drop down to run as one arm studio program. And then once you see that blinking, either faster or slow or whatever, you will know you'll have a verification that you are uploading programs to your board. The frequency will change, and that's when you know everything is working as you expect. So now that we know that we can upload programs to the Matter board, let's take a look at how we can integrate that into our home IoT setup. And this is where it starts to get really cool. So on the main window, go to the upper left corner and click the Install button, and then click on Manage Install Packages. From there, across the top, you'll want to click on the SDK tabs, or SDKs tab up there. It's up and to the left, and you should see Gecko SDK, which is already installed. And then under that, you're going to click on Silicon Labs Matter and click Next. The Installation Manager window will pop up, and the status will slowly but surely start progressing. This is another one that takes some time. So there, yep, we've got the Installation Manager. And again, this is not a quick install, so get comfy. Now, once it finishes, click the Close button to close this window and move forward. You will get an Installation Complete window, so just close that too, and that'll get you back to the main window. Now, if your Thing Plus Matterboard isn't still plugged in, make sure you plug it in now. Click on it, and you should see it in the Overview window. It should look something like this. Now, from here, you're going to want to click on Examples and Example Projects and Demos tab up there across the top, second from the left, and you should see a ton of options. Now, since we want to work with Matter, you can click on the Matter Radio button, and from there, you'll see it brings down to two similarly named resources. Actually, two exactly named resources. You should see Matter-SOC lighting over thread. Now, one has a run button, and that's just a pre-compiled demo. Now, the other should have a create button, and that's the one we want. That's got the actual source code itself, so hit the create button. This is going to bring up the project configuration window, which will allow you to change the project name, its location, stuff like that. Now, you can change it if you want, but there's really no need at this point, so you can just click Finish. Now, this will start creating the project, and with a little progress bar up there for you to keep an eye on. Once that's done, you'll be brought back to this screen, and there are a couple of tabs across the top. Let me make sure I'm on the right screen. There are a couple of tabs, should be a couple of tabs across the top. Yep, there we go. You may want to poke around, look deeper. And if you look at the window on the left, you can see the source code for the project, just like with the first Blink example that we did. So again, you can dig around in that because it's really cool. It's really interesting. It's a little overwhelming. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot going on here, but really, it's a great way to start just seeing what this is doing. And even if you don't understand it fully, you can at least know what's there and kind of dip your toes in the water of what all is going on here. But for now, well, like I said, we can just leave everything the way it is. So now it is time to build the project. And a simple way to do that is just to right click on the project folder there in the Project Explorer window, that's up and to the left, and then go down and click Run as /One Silicon Labs ARM project. This is going to compile the project and flash it to the board for you. And again, you'll be able to see the progress in the console window down there on the bottom. It should be just rifling through every step that it's doing, so you can keep an eye on that. Now, this one too will take a bit, and once it's finished, we're going to need to flash a bootloader to the board. To do that, we're going to head back over to the Launcher tab, and this is going to be in the upper right corner of the screen. Click on the Launcher tab there, and open that up, then scroll down and click on the Bootloader radio button, which is there on the left. Now, this should give you at least a dozen or so options, but specifically, we need the bootloader-SOC internal storage single image on 512 kilobyte device. So click create on that and you'll get the same window as before. And like before, we can leave all the defaults and then click on create. This one will take much less time to create than the last one. So that's nice and exciting to see something happening so quickly. So from there, you'll go to, just like before, you'll need to go over to Project Explorer window. You're going to right-click on the bootloader folder, then go down once again to run as /1 Silicon Labs ARM project. And this will also get compiled and flashed onto the board. Now, that's it for flashing to the board. We've got everything we need on there. And now we can pair it to our Matter Hub. As I mentioned earlier, I'm using the Google Nest Hub. So if you're using a different ecosystem, it'll probably be slightly different, but basically this should at least get you going in the right direction. And then you can take a look at the docs for whichever your ecosystem is, and that should really help you get everything set up and connected. So here is the developer console for the ecosystem that I'm using. All Matter devices will have a certificate that proves that they're genuine Matter devices. Now, this code we just flashed to the board has what's called a test certificate. Now, acceptance of the test certificates varies between ecosystems at the moment. Google is currently declining test certificates unless you manually add it to your Google Developer Console. So I'm going to go to the console.home.google.com, and I'll need to sign in to this using the same account that my Google Hub is connected to. And so once I'm signed in, then I can click on Create a Project. From here, give it a name. I named mine First Matter Test, and then click there on the Create Project button. And once the next page loads, click Add Matter Integration. Now here we'll have a page of developer resources, and it's going to look something like this. It's got a whole bunch of stuff on it. It's more than my screen is showing at the moment, but it's got a ton of stuff there. For what we're doing today, we can really ignore most of this. I mean, if you really want to take the time to dive in, there's a ton of info here, feel free. But for what we're doing, we can simply click on the Next Develop button down at the bottom. And this next checklist is for developers who are designing or creating a fully certified device. Once again, we're not doing that, so we can skip that too, and that should take us to the setup page. Excuse me. Now here on the setup page, we do need to input some information. For starters, it's going to ask for a product name and device type. I'm going to call this Hello Light for obvious reasons and set it as a light device. That'll give us a simple on-off in the Google Developer Console. Now, if we scroll down a little further on this page, we'll also need the vendor ID and the product ID, and those we can retrieve from the board itself. So with your board connected to your computer via USB, which it still should be, you can open any serial terminal of your choice and find it that way. I use TerraTerm, or I did this time around, because it was there, but you could also use PuTTY. You could even use your Arduino IDE and click on board info, whatever's easiest and most comfortable for you. So in the terminal window, if you type help, all lowercase, you'll get a full list of commands. And if you type config, you'll get the board info that you need. We want the hexadecimal value here, and you can see here that the vendor ID is FFF1, which is already correct in your setup. So that's great. The product ID or PID here is 8005, so we'll enter that into the PID field. And remember that these values need to have a leading 0x, so the PID will be 0x8005. The vendor ID will be 0xFFF1. So once you've got those values in, you can click the Save and Continue button. This next page, Configure and Set Up Branding, is optional. You can add images, you can add app info, all sorts of stuff. We don't need that at this point, so we'll skip this by simply clicking the Save button. And now Google Hub will accept the board's test certificate. One more thing we need to do, so hopefully you haven't closed out of your serial terminal yet. If you have, just reopen that, because we still need to commission the board. And the way to do that is with a QR code. So once again, in your terminal, the way to get the QR code is by typing into your serial terminal onboarding codes space BLE. Now, this will return some information to you, including a URL. So copy and paste that into your browser, or just click the hyperlink if your terminal program does that. And you will be greeted with a screen with just a QR code. Oh, did I miss my QR code? I guess I did. Must have forgotten to upload that. Well, it's a screen with a big QR code. You can't miss it. And now, even if it says it'll send the QR code that this QR code is unique to every device, it appears actually that it's unique to every project. So if you're using the same example that we're using, that I'm using, you're going to get the same QR code. And now that we have all the ingredients there, we can put it all together. Now, to actually commission our Matter device to our Google Nest Hub, we need an Android device paired with your Google Nest Hub. So you should have done that when you set up your Google Nest Hub. And if you haven't, you can take care of that now, and your ecosystem, whichever, will tell you how to figure that out. So sorry, iPhone folks, they're working on it for you. But right now, at least for Google Nest, you need an Android device. Now, you've probably already got it connected to Google Nest, but if not, just take care of that. Now, on your Android device, in the Google Home app, you can click on Devices across the bottom of the screen, and then click on the Add button. That'll take you to the Setup a Device screen. Click on New Device, and then select which of your Google Home Nest Hubs or your Google Nest Hubs is connected to, if you have more than one. I only have one right now, so that makes it pretty easy. At this point, your phone is going to start doing a Bluetooth scan. It's going to start looking for the Thing Plus Matter. It may find it automatically. It might not. Mine did this time around and asked if I was trying to connect to Hello Light. So I just clicked yes, and then it brought me to the scan the QR code screen. Now, if it didn't automatically find it, a screen would come up asking me what type of device it should be looking for. Here I would click Matter Enabled Device, and then it would ask me to scan the QR code. So it's just that easy. Either one works, so don't worry if one happens and the other doesn't. Whichever it does for you, roll with it. Now, having done that, you'll get the I agree to connect this device to my Google Home screen. And so just click the agree button there. And once again, it's going to start searching for the device as it completes the commissioning process. Now, as soon as that's finished, you can click on the done button, and you'll let it know what room it's in. In my case, it's basement. And you'll also need a name for this device. And once again, I'll go with Hello Light and click on the next button, and it'll finish commissioning. Now, as soon as it's finished, it's going to show up in our listed devices. And we can now control the LED on the Thing Plus Matter board from our Home app by tapping. I don't have screen captures, and you can't see it there, but let me find my device. Here we are. I'm connected here. And by clicking the Hello Light on, I don't know if you can see that, but the LED came on. I can click it off, and the light goes off. We can also control it from our Google Nest Hub. If you look on your screen there, same thing. It'll say Hello Light. We can click it on. We can click it off. And the coolest thing, and the reason we're all getting into the Internet of Things for the coolness factor, is that we can use voice commands to do it. I'm actually not going to do that right now, simply because many of you may have a Google Nest out there, and I don't want to say the wake up phrase, and, that could go poorly. But just know that I can say the wake up phrase, turn hello light on, wake up phrase, turn hello light off. I can even do wake up phrase, set hello light to 50%, to 30%, something like that. It's really cool. So I think that's it. I mean, that's pretty much step by step getting you through this. Like I said, these are quick step by steps. And if you want to really dive into it and spend some time doing it on your own, you can either go back and watch this and pause it when you need to, or you can head over to sparkfun.com, find our Thing Plus Matter board, and there are setup guides and instructions there. And thank you, Clemens. And that'll help you get everything up and running. So just know that because this is all still really new, components, boards, and extensions are continually being added to the Matter environment. And so things are going to continue to grow and develop. And right now there are a few SparkFun boards, some sensors, some quick sensors that you can plug into your Thing Matter Plus on the quick connector. And there are libraries and extensions to get those up and running quickly. I just thought I would start with the super basics, and perhaps we'll do another webinar, or I'll do another video, and we'll move on from here and look at how to integrate some new stuff to it. So that's it. I'm excited for this. I hope you are too. I hope this at least gave you an idea of what this is, and you can start moving forward with it.
Okay, thank you, Rob. That was very interesting. It seems like we are inventing more and more complicated ways to switch on the light. If I want to control the light by voice, I just send my son to please switch on the light. No coding
Brilliant.
required.
You're old school.
Yeah, we will now enter the Q&A session. And by the way, your experience with Matter seems, so they claim to be a universal solution for everything in home automation. Do you think it will still be the case next year? Like the USB bus, it was the universal solution, and now we are USB whatever 5, 6.
Right. I think it will. I think with the companies behind this and the amount of time and resources, honestly, they put into it. And let's face it, it's about the money for a lot of bigger companies. I think the amount that they've invested in it, this is going to be around for a while. And
Of
when
course,
you're
it
looking
will
for
be around,
devices,
but will it be
oh,
as
right,
universal as they say?
right, right. I think so. I'd like to hope so. Especially from a developer standpoint. I don't want to spend a year, with my head buried in all this information only to find out a year from now that it's changed.
Yeah.
It
I mean,
will
I'll chime
be
in a little bit.
improved, enhanced.
I'll chime in a little bit. I've been doing this for a while. I've seen a lot of different technologies. I was involved in the original 1 megabit Wi-Fi. A couple things I'm seeing at this that are exciting to me. I think the biggest one is really around ecosystem support. I've never seen a product go from spec release to ramping in production so quick. And to give you an idea, if you have and devices from the key ecosystems player, if you have a Google Home Hub or a Google device, or if you have Amazon, or if you have Samsung, or if you have Apple, you probably already have Matter enabled in your infrastructure today. And that's really getting over that key barrier. So for example, I have Samsung and Amazon in my home. I have over 70 devices. Most of them are Zigbee. But already now with my Samsung and my Amazon, I could put Matter devices. In fact, I've already installed 3 Matter lights just to see how they integrate, and everything worked fine. So I think that's the most exciting thing about this is those ecosystems standing behind it. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it's 100% ready to go. There is still gaps in the spec, and the CSA is rolling these updates out about every 6 months. We've done things to improve low power. We're working on things to improve the multi-admin. That's probably not as seamless as it needs to be. Things like switch support. So, there's still going to be improvements. It's not as stable as it needs to be or where it needs to be completely rolled out, but they're getting there. And I have high confidence that this is going to be really the main thing you're going to see in home automation in the home. And again, it's because of the ecosystem support.
Well, and I like to hope at this point, I know there will be changes to this, but hopefully it will be like USB, and it's something as minor as, I mean, not from a developer standpoint, but from a user standpoint, going from USB mini to USB micro. I think there will still be small changes, things that once we start getting a lot of user feedback from around the world, people will say it would be better if it did this. So there will certainly be more tweaks and changes and
Yeah,
advances in it. But
it's improvements in devices. So if you look at some of the things they're looking at pulling in appliances. They're looking at pulling in
right.
robot vacuums. It's really about addressing getting more device types, etc. And I don't think you're going to see is where it goes out and breaks something that you have that there's incompatibility. It's really about adding functionality and adding device types.
Okay, well, we'll see in a year. Maybe we can do this webinar again in 1 year's time, see where we stand. Yeah, we have to move on to the Q&A. I think. Yeah, so there we are in Q&A. We have the first question popped up. That's not the first question. The first question was, are the slides available for download? That's
I don't know. Are they?
Rob,
Should I
you
put
made
them?
them. No,
I
you
did.
don't
I
have to
did.
put it up, but you have the copyright, right?
Sure, but I'm open source. So
Okay.
yes, I will figure out where to put those.
Okay. Then the next question. So what's the main advantages over the TI SOCs like the CC1350?
I mean, Rob, I don't know if you want to take it. I could definitely take it. I'm going to have a little biased view, being from Silicon Labs,
I,
but I am very
I'm gonna
familiar
allow
with
you.
TI. I mean, I think of the biggest advantage is first place. That's the 1350 is their dual band device. So if you'd be looking at a TI device for Matter, you're probably looking at more like the 26 series. Um, but I think the biggest thing you see on there, the concerns, obviously, we tend to look at this from a whole system standpoint. It's not just the hardware. But if I look at it specifically from the hardware, um, they're pretty flash limited. At 1 meg, you're not going to be able to run the whole Matter stack application. We have one of the most code efficient ones, and we're over 1 meg. So on a device like that, you would need to have external flash for over-the-air updates. The other thing, one of the things we really focus on is, um, low power. So we have very good active currents. Our active currents are several milliamps better from a RX and TX at 0 dBm than TI as well. TI does have very good sleep current, but their sleep current numbers are without cache enabled. So there is some longer wake up times there. So as you're waking up, you're actually drawing power over those longer wake up times. So when you look at the total system power, we're going to be better with cache enabled, things like that. So overall, I mean, we tend to look at the whole development experience. I did answer a question earlier, and I'd really encourage anybody out there to go look. We just launched yesterday our Matter development journey, and so if you just go to scilabs.com, go to our Matter page, you'll see the development journey. This takes you through the steps from getting started, learning about Matter, all the way to deployment. And we actually have some video examples. I think we actually have one on there for SparkFun as well. That sort of talk about when you get into development. So I'd highly recommend that. I mean, we're focused on making sure that we help you get all the way to production, not just selling hardware.
Okay, thank you. The next question. Is there a development kit with Ethernet?
Not
I
that I'm
don't
aware of at the
know,
moment.
but
I don't know.
Yeah, so from our side, we don't have kits with Ethernet. I mean, our kits have an Ethernet connector on them, but that's for our network analysis. It's not for, using Ethernet as the backhaul for Matter.
okay.
Right, and on our side, this is the first Matter anything we've developed. So,
And you
this one
didn't
took us
put an
about
Ethernet connector
6
on it.
months. Right.
That will be version 2. So what is the cheapest microcontroller that Matter can run on? Yeah, I don't know
Not
that.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in general, I mean, what you have to look at is the flash and RAM. In general, most devices out there are going to need more than 1 meg of flash and 128 to 256K of RAM to run. Now, you're saying microcontroller here specifically. If you talk about wireless and, for example, Wi-Fi or Matter over Thread, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can go the whole SoC route. So what Rob was demonstrating is our SoC. What that means is everything's running on that chip. You've got the Matter stack or the Thread protocol stack, Matter application. You could also go with something called an RCP, which is a radio coprocessor. So think of that as a transceiver only, and then you would mate that up with a higher end processor. So, for example, if you're adding Matter to a device that already has a higher end MPU, you could simply go with one of these lower cost RCP devices. It's just running, it doesn't need a lot of flash and RAM, and the heavy lifting is done on the host. If you're doing like an end device, then typically you'll run more of an SoC mode.
Yeah,
Not sure
so
that
the cost
directly
is
answers the question, but there is some different architectures depending on what your device type is.
exactly that determine the cost, the total cost. So now we come to the first question, which wasn't the first question. Is there a Linux version of Simplicity Studio?
Yes, there
Yes, there
is.
is.
Yep, it's right on that page on the Scilab site, and it's got Windows or Apple or Linux.
Okay. Is there an example application for YSUN or AMI and with 6LoWPAN or CoAP support?
There's not on my computer.
I'm not sure if this is with Matter or if this is more generic on that device. I mean, typically when you think of YSUN, you're thinking of sub-gigahertz. You're thinking of the smart utility network. We definitely have YSUN solutions in the sub-gigahertz realm, both in FSK and OFDM, and they have different things. And Matter, right now, the only wireless technologies Matter supporting is obviously Thread and Wi-Fi. That's because Matter supports IP-based technologies. It does support Bluetooth for commissioning, but it does require IP-based technologies for the network transport.
Okay. Then we get this question: is there a cost for using the compiler and or using build optimizations?
So, Rob, I mean, I don't know, I could also take that. I mean, so
Yeah, I
when
think
you look at
that's a you question.
yeah, when you look at Matter, there's different ways to get Matter. So I think, Rob, you mentioned sort of the CSA GitHub. We have a Silicon
Right.
Labs Matter GitHub, and then there's the studio, which you demonstrated. In each one of these, we sort of take further steps and we do actual code optimizations. So when you get into the Silicon Labs studio examples, we've already optimized, tested those. And then you could further optimize them by stripping out some things like debug. So for example, when you go to production, you probably don't need the debug stuff. So there is generally not a cost for this optimization using everything that's in the studio. If you used a third-party IDE, then that's a different story. But if you're using what we provide in studio, everything's there and there's no extra cost. And we've already done a lot of the optimizations for you.
Okay, that's good. This was mentioned during the, well, you mentioned it, I think, Matt. Is there
Yeah, I
over the
think they're
air?
asking for firmware over the air
Yes, that's what I
support. So that
assumed.
is absolutely supported, and it's in the code base. You can enable it. We do have a bootloader that supports all that, and that's one of the things I was talking about. That code size is that's one of the things people think about as they're developing. They're saying, "Oh, well, this all fits," but then you have to think you have to have the over-the-air update. That typically, if you don't have enough flash, you'll have to install it on some type of external and non-volatile. The 24 device that Rob demonstrated does have enough to run everything, including the over-the-air update. We actually compress that image to about 33%, so it allows us to run everything on that one device, including the image.
Okay.
I want to take a second here and just say that I just dropped a link to the slides into the chat for whoever wants those. I don't know who asked, but
yeah, I see it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Will be
Certainly.
appreciated.
Yeah.
Maybe we can put it later on after the webinar on our website, so it will also be
Right, so
available
it
for
doesn't
people.
disappear as soon as it's over. Thank you, Clemens.
So this question: if I decide to create my own hardware with a 32-bit microcontroller, which programmer debugger do you recommend? It's not really a matter question, but more a microcontroller development question. It depends a bit, I think, on how much money you have.
Yeah, I'll answer this from the Silicon Labs perspective. So if you're creating your own hardware using our silicon, you could actually use some of our development hardware as the actual debugger programmer. We have that option. So our wireless SDK or our Pro kits have a main board that you can use for that. If you're using us for, somebody else, then I wouldn't have that answer.
That's just normal. Here, it's quite complicated. So is there a good reference book or is it too early yet?
I don't know that there's a book. I know that there's a ton of information online. I've found, again, through GitHub, there's lots of stuff there, both, I believe, Silicon Labs, as well as the chip one that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, I don't know that it's made it to print, to hardbound print yet.
Well, books is a bit Elector's specialty, so maybe we will publish one in the future.
Not bad.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything. That's a good point. I know early days you saw books on Zigbee and stuff. I haven't seen anything on this. There is a ton of information out there, especially with the ecosystems. Again, if you want to go to our development journey, there's a good getting started section, but I haven't really found something. I don't know of anything that's a book that sort of summarizes everything.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe an opportunity.
We're also streaming on YouTube. We got a question there. So what boards are recommended when using Matter?
Well, I kind of recommend this one, but I'm
Yeah.
probably biased. I don't know a lot of other boards out there right now. They're doing Matter. I mean, I'm sure you could create something with an ESP32 or something like that. Again, it comes down to flash size, memory size, what you're going to need to make everything work that you want to work on this. Matt, any thoughts on that? Anything
No,
else? Any
obvious.
boards that
Yeah.
you know of?
I mean, obviously you've got the SparkFun board there. Any of our MG24 will be Matter over Thread, and then if you're doing Matter over Wi-Fi, we've got Wi-Fi boards as well. But the nice thing about obviously on the SparkFun, you have everything there. The one thing I like about it, you also have that capability for third-party devices, so you could actually add functionality to that as well. If you want to, if I want to, how do I do something else? It's great for proof of concept as well.
Yeah, so if you still do not know which board you need, you can join the raffle and maybe you win a board, and then at least you have a board and you can start developing. Then you will figure out what you really need, probably. So click on in the green bar, there is the entry to the raffle. Now here's an interesting question. Is there any way to do anything without Google?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure if you're not using Google, if you're using Amazon, Alexa, if you're using one of the other ecosystems, this happens to be the one that I had, so this is the way I went, but I'm sure there is.
Yeah, and again, absolutely. Google, to be honest, with you probably is furthest along in sort of the development flow. But again, if you go to our Matter development journey, you will see an ecosystems page. We have information on Amazon, Google, and Samsung. All three of those are on there, and it's going to be a little different. For example, for the demonstration you did, Rob, at one point you went into sort of the Google Developer Conference console, and you entered the PID and VID. You don't have to do that with, I know for sure for Samsung and Amazon. What they do is when I try to join, it looks for that certificate. And if it doesn't see it, it'll say, hey, this is not a Matter certified device. Are you sure you want to let it join? And you can let it join. So there's different ways. But again, you could do it with all three, including Apple as well. All four of those will have some type of development platform. Google by far is the furthest along and has the most information available for their developer, though.
Okay, that ties in with the next question, which is related to Apple. So you just said we can use Apple too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Apple has a platform, and you could join that as well. And in fact, one of the things we've demonstrated is we've just demonstrated multi-admin. So what I mean by that, if you're not familiar with that, what that allows you to do is a device to sort of exist on both Matter fabrics. So for example, in the home, I have a Samsung Matter fabric, I have an Amazon Matter fabric. Multi-admin allows those devices to join both, so I can control it with one ecosystem. Apple does that as well. Apple, we've demonstrated Samsung and Apple, as well as Google and Apple in multi-fabric. So it's the ecosystem of your choice on who you want to start with. And if you don't want to do an ecosystem, you just want to do development, we also enable that through Raspberry Pi. So you could use a Raspberry Pi. We have a preset image for that enables an open thread border router on that Raspberry Pi that acts a lot like an ecosystem. And you could use Chip Tool. It's much more code oriented. It's not as easy, to be honest with you. If you're trying to just do some demonstrations, the ecosystem is the way to go. If you want to get into a little bit more hardcore development, you can use a Raspberry Pi for that border router, creating that fabric.
Okay, that's good to
And I
hear.
think
A
I
lot
think
of
I may have misspoke there. I know that Android was the first to put out an app to let you use your phone with the Google developer, and I know iPhone does have one now. So sorry
Yeah.
about that.
yeah, I start saying it's. I think a lot of people will like the idea of using Raspberry Pi for this. We have a lot of Raspberry Pi users. So then we can skip all the Apple questions. Here we have one. Can we just use an ESP32 to do similar? I think similar here, meaning as the SparkFun Think Plus Matter board.
I don't know. I haven't tried it. I mean, we have an ESP32 Think Plus board. Like I said, I haven't tried doing any of this with it, but perhaps I shall.
Okay, so then is there an ESP32 demo link that we don't know?
Right.
Maybe on Silicon Labs? No, I don't think so. Huh? Is there a Python MicroPython interface? Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Right. I'm not sure of the question. I mean, I get the question. I'm not sure of the answer, I guess. I don't know that there is, if you can go directly from MicroPython or a Python environment.
I suppose you can add one to your application if you have enough
Right.
memory
Yeah.
left, and then
I
you
don't know
can control
extensions
it
or
over
libraries. I'm
MicroPython.
not sure.
Yeah. The example of Rob, was it communicating over thread?
That was, I believe that was Bluetooth, but it might have been thread. I actually have to go back and dig through the code to remember which
So
one
are
it's
they
using.
talking specifically on the example you did? I mean, when you commission the device on the MG24 is a matter over thread. So when you
Okay.
actually do the commissioning and you start the commissioning, it's actually using Bluetooth. So it uses Bluetooth to do the commissioning, to exchange all the keys and everything. And then once that's done and it joins the network, it is matter over thread.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Matt. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
And so it's going into the next version of Matter.
I don't know that that's a question for either of us.
Yeah, we can follow up. We do have some information. That information is available on CSA on on what they're looking at. I don't have it in front of me, but as I said, most of it's on new device types. So they're looking at devices like appliances. If you give me 1 second, I'll pull up my slide on this. Let's see. Sorry about that. I don't have it right in front of me. But there's a number of device types, and most of it is looking at new device types. For example, they're looking at things like cameras. So you want to bring cameras into the Matter fold, robot vacuums, air quality control, ambient sensing devices, appliances. That's a big one. We're seeing a lot of interest in appliances. Energy management. When you think think of things like solar outside the house, as well as EV chargers in the home, smoke and CO, and access points. Now, those are all the things that are sort of being considered in CSA. Again, they're going to have that 6-month cadence, so I don't know what's going to be in the next spec, which will be 1.2 or something released in the November timeframe. But those are the things they're looking at. Most of the work is minor tweaks and device type support. We will actually be in December. We're planning on doing a tech talk on what's new and the latest on Matter at Silicon Labs. So that may be something to look for. It'll be in probably the December timeframe.
Okay, thank you. How is Matter related? What is the relation between Amazon Sidewalk? Yeah, well, I'm sorry.
I could talk a little bit about that. I'm actually responsible for both Matter and Sidewalk here at Silicon Labs. Sidewalk is a little different. Obviously, Sidewalk is a specific, it's specific to Amazon, and it's what they're using for their infrastructure in the home. So you have these devices like Ring cameras, Alexa devices, and they have their own network called Sidewalk. And the advantage of this is it's a free network that you can use, that you could piggyback on. You do have it uses AWS, so you have to use AWS as the back end. But there's Bluetooth in the house. There's FSK sort of for beyond the front door, and then you have CSS for that neighborhood area network. So it is very different. It's specific to Amazon, but it does have some unique capabilities in the fact, especially when you're trying to piggyback on these neighborhood area networks versus really just what I'm going to call Matter as a smart home network. It's really in the home, in the yard type of environment.
We still have a lot of questions, actually. I don't think we will be able to answer them all. Is Matter going to use BLE mesh technology?
Yeah, so at this time, as I mentioned earlier, Matter really uses IP as the transport mechanism. BLE mesh is not IP, so they would have to, make a change and be able to support IP Internet Protocol over that. Again, BLE, we use BLE for commissioning, Bluetooth Low Energy for commissioning, but it's not really the network transport layer. So at this point, BLE mesh would not be, because it's not IP based.
Okay. Then we have a question for Rob. What is the cost of the SparkFun board?
You know what? Let me check. Give me 1 second. Sorry. It is going for $24.95 US.
Wow.
Okay.
So it's a pretty inexpensive entry point, I think, into this.
Yeah, that's very inexpensive entry point for Matter.
Yeah, I actually expected it to be more than that. I mean, not a lot, I'm not talking $100, but 25 is pretty cheap.
Is there a Matter central hub available allowing connecting devices regardless of protocol?
Yeah, I'm not sure I completely understand that. I mean, Matter, again, if you look at the wireless protocols, Matter supporting it's Wi-Fi and Open Thread. There's obviously a lot of protocols out there in the home that aren't that. So how do you get those into Matter? And that's actually done through bridging. For example, like I said, I have over 70 devices in my house. Most of them are Zigbee. Through a Zigbee to Matter bridge, I could bring those Zigbee devices onto the Matter network and the Matter fabric. I don't know if there's a specific device out there that has everything built in, like it's a Matter Open Thread border router, it's a Matter to Zigbee bridge. I expect that will be available, but I'm not aware of anything today that has that capability. But it's really would be through bridging, because they're not supported native by Matter.
Actually, there is a follow-up explanation, meaning Zigbee talking to RTS, etc., without complicated transforms. Then it would be using Matter as some sort of universal communication layer to make everything talk to everything else. Okay, let's move on to the next.
So is that a follow-up to that first question, or that last
Oh,
question?
yeah, it was a sort of explanation of his question.
Yeah, so I think what he was asking was sort of like that Zigbee bridge. And obviously it is a bridge, so you have protocol translations in there. The great news is, we already have that in our Unify SDK. We have a Zigbee to Matter bridge, so I think it makes it pretty easy. Zigbee's under the CSA as well, so that's already something that's pretty well defined.
Okay. What is the difference between XG24 Explorer Kit and Think Plus Matter board? I don't know the XG24 Explorer
Yeah,
Kit.
so the XG24 Explorer Kit is our board. The samples applications are very similar. You're going to have some different pin mappings and things. In Studio, though, when you build the projects, you just target the board, and we handle all of that. If you were to take a compiled image and try to run it on both, it probably wouldn't run, because your IO mapping is different. But otherwise, they're very similar. And Studio handles that. When you build the projects, it'll just map it to the board you want and map all the IO.
Okay, thank you for all these explanations.
The SparkFun board, though, is more affordable. I will say that. It's less than our evaluation kit. I was sort of surprised at your price there, Rob.
Sorry.
Good price on that.
As we are at the end of our time, it's almost 5 o'clock, so we have to stop here. Well, I'd like to thank you both, Rob Reynolds and Matt Maupin, for doing this webinar with me. It was very interesting and very instructive.
Great. Well, thank you. This has been great. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned something.
Oh, yes, I learned a lot. I don't know anything about Matter yet.
Great. Thank you. Great engagement. Great questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, then our next webinar is in about 1 month, and it will be about designing PCBs for high-speed communication protocols. Hope to see you next time, and with that said, thank you for participating, and goodbye.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.